Welcome back. I'm Dr. Diana Hill. I'm a clinical psychologist, host of the Wise Effort Show. Wise Effort is about you using your genius energy to get what you really want in your work, in your relationships, and in your well-being. And often we are in the position where we are spending a lot of energy, a lot of output, creating things, making wonderful things happen in our life, and feel like we are not satisfied with what we have, feel like we're not doing enough. This is the case of strivers, a case that I know so well personally, and that I get myself tangled up in, and that I'm figuring out how to untangle. Because there are psychological reasons why you are overcommitted. Yes, there's all sorts of contextual reasons why you are overcommitted. There is too much to do. But there are things that you are doing that are contributing to your overcommitment. And there are psychological reasons why you feel like you're not doing enough. So today we're going to tackle these in this two-part episode. First, 5 reasons why you're overcommitted and at the same time feel like you're not doing enough. And then next episode, I'm going to give you 5 solutions, 5 ways to use your energy wisely and actually feel satisfied with what you have. Alrighty, let's get started. I'm going to keep telling you about Costa Rica because I go there twice a year. I go for my personal retreat and then I lead retreat every year in April, same time every year, because going to Costa Rica is a full life reset. You are tending to your psychological self. You're yearning to grow and learn and build competence while doing the workshops with me. You're tending to your longing to take better care of your body. It is so hard to take care of our bodies in this modern world, to move our bodies the way that they need to be moved, to nourish them with food, to get enough nature time. And you will get plenty of all of that in Costa Rica. Plus, we will tend to that yearning to slow things down, to actually have some space to think about your life and is it headed where you want it to go? Come with me to Costa Rica. I promise you it will be life-changing. Everyone that's gone with me comes back feeling like 10 years younger, for one, but also that they had some kind of clarity that happened for them on this trip. I don't have a lot of spots left. The rooms are going quick. We may only have tents soon, so if you want AC, get in now. And you can sign up at drdianahill.com. I'm really looking forward to seeing you there. Alrighty. So quite a while ago, I had a client tell me this statement of, I feel like I am simultaneously overcommitted and underinvolved in my life. And I wrote it down. You know, when you're in a session, you're just like, oh, that is so good, because this is a paradox, right? We're doing so much. We're putting ourselves out in a lot of different places. And at the same time can feel like we're not fully in the things that we're doing. Or if we're doing them, we also feel like we should be doing more. So what is happening here? Why are we in this position of doing too much but feeling like we're not doing enough? This is really the work of Wise Effort. This is something that I've been diving into for the last number of years because I've personally experienced it, but I see it everywhere in my practice. And today I want to really nail down the 5 reasons why we do this. Next time we talk, I will nail down 5 things that you can do to help you. So the 5 reasons why we get overcommitted, but then at the same time feel like we're not doing enough. Reason number 1 is you think that it is normal. You think it's normal, and even you think that there is some normal that you are trying to achieve. Now, this is the myth of normalcy. And I've learned a lot about this myth as I've been developing my skills as an ACT trainer and reading more of the research out there on the reality that there is no normal. When you look at psychological tests, so something like the 5-dimensional personality test, the Big 5, OCEAN, we've heard of that. If you are in psychology, it's probably one of the most lauded personality tests out there. 90% of individuals are far from average on at least one trait. So you think that you are normal, you'd be able to categorize yourself as an extrovert or an introvert, but even on that category, there is no normal in extroversion. When you look at what it means to be normal and the sort of definition of normal in psychology, the odds of you being normal are 1 in 16 million. That means that there are less than 500 people in the world that would fit that categorization of being normal. As a psychologist, I've spent a lot of years diagnosing people, trained up in how to diagnose people. This is problematic as well because we think that there is some normal category and some abnormal category, and we all want to jump into the normal box. But when you actually start to look at these diagnoses, most people who are diagnosed as abnormal don't even fit in the abnormal category. So even if there is no even normal abnormal, most people that are given diagnoses are labeled not otherwise specified. So we think it's normal to have a certain life with certain activities in it. We think it's normal to have a trajectory of getting married and going to college and having kids. You remember that game of life? Did you ever play that as a kid? Oh my gosh, years ago, my kids really, really wanted to play. They played it at a friend's house and they wanted to play it. And so we bought this game of life, and it was the most horrible message ever to give your kids. You get the little car, and then you put the little pink and the little blue people in it. And then you travel along this path where your goal is to have kids, make money, get degrees, get a job, and then finally get to the end where you can get a ranch house or a shack or a mansion, right? That's normal, or that's fed to us as normal, and we buy into it. There is no normal, folks. You are unique. And we'll talk more about your unique genius, your unique things that you offer into this world in the next episode. But let's just start with that. When you believe that there is some normal path that you are supposed to follow, you are going to say yes to things that are not the right fit for you because there is no normal, therefore they cannot fit if it's some idea out there of what it's supposed to be. You're not going to say no to things that you know inside you have a whole body no, this is not right for me. And you will be on that horrific game of life board game, which you don't really want to be on. You have your own path that doesn't follow the game of life. All right, so let's destroy normal. And actually, I'm part of this movement in psychology that's all about destroying the DSM. Killing the DSM is what Steve Hayes calls it, because these boxes of normality are also rooted in eugenics and racism. So let's eliminate normal. Okay, number 2, the second reason why you are overcommitted and at the same time feel like you're underinvolved, why you're overcommitted and you feel like you are spread too thin, but also not doing enough, is that you are holding on too tight. You are clinging. This is what Joe Sorochi and I talked about in our last episode when we talked about wanting versus liking. So there's these two systems in your body at the neurobiological level that are driving you to go after things, right? One system is the wanting system and the other is the liking system. And actually they are separate systems. So according to this model of incentive sensitization, which is often used with substance use, the wanting system is primarily driven by dopaminergic pathways. It originates in the ventral tegmental area and it projects into regions like the amygdala and then nucleus accumbens and the prefrontal cortex, these places that integrate this feeling of I want more, whatever your substance of choice is. So when we are overcommitting ourselves, often it's because that wanting system is being activated. I want more things on my schedule. I want more people to like me. I want to feel important in some way. That sort of wanting, craving system can drive a lot of our behavior. I see this a lot in my work life where I will say yes to things because it's got that cravey, clingy quality as opposed to actually really liking that thing. Maybe it's to give a talk or lead a full day training that has some prestige associated with it. And I get hooked. We all get hooked. Only you know what your hooks are around that sort of wanting quality. But then there's this other system which has to do more with liking. And the liking system is the good feeling of enjoying what you have. So sometimes we want what we like. I want to spend more time swimming in the ocean. I really like swimming in the ocean. But sometimes we want something, but we don't really like it when we get it. And that's what happens with substances. When you have a substance abuse issue, you want the substance, you crave it, but then when you get it, it actually doesn't feel satisfying. When you're overcommitted and feel like you are underinvolved in your life, it's because you're wanting all those things and you're actually not liking them when you get them. This two-system model can help us because we can start to differentiate in our bodies and our beings. What does it feel like when I'm in that craving, wanting system? And what does it feel like when I'm actually in my liking system? So that you have more of what you like. Next time we talk, I will share with you a bit about our core human yearnings that I've mentioned a few times in the show. And that is often a place where we choose things that we want, but not what we like, and actually how to really meet those core yearnings. There's a really classic Zen koan around this, which is, I just love the image of it, which is the monkey with its hand caught in a jar. And so the jar has a banana in it, and the monkey's reaching in and trying to pull that banana out. And as long as it's attached to this banana, it can't get its hand out. And that's what it can feel like when you're overcommitted. Like when you just have too much on your plate, it can feel like I'm trapped. I'm trapped by my commitments, or maybe you are trapped by all of your tasks and to-dos. But the reality is you are the one that's holding on to that banana. And the only way to get out of this jar, out of this trapped feeling, is to let go of something that you want. Ouch. So that you can have something that you like. Right? So this is the paradox that by letting go of that banana, then your hand is freed and you can do more things with it. There's lots of fruit out there and maybe some that are a better fit for you. So we'll talk more about that. The ways that you may be holding too tightly. I want you to start to think about this for yourself. You may be holding too tightly to things like feeling good all of the time. So you are overcommitting yourself because you don't want to feel the bad feeling of saying no to things. You just want to feel good. Or maybe you're holding too tightly to expectations, that banana is really an expectation of yourself or an expectation of another person. You hold too tight to your hopes and dreams. I know hopes sound wonderful, dreams sound wonderful. And at the same time, because most of the things that we expect to happen, or our hopes and our dreams, actually don't happen the way that we hope and dream that they will. And it makes us rigid. It makes us psychologically inflexible when we think it has to go a certain way. You may be holding too tight to controlling other people. That's a classic one, wanting other people to do things a certain way that you actually have no control over. I see this a lot in families and in spouses, where you expend a lot of energy holding too tight to other people acting a certain way, or feeling resentful when they don't, and these expectations you have. Maybe you're holding too tight because you're pleasing others. And in doing so, that sort of holding on to that banana in the jar ends up making you inauthentic because you're not really being honest. But it also means that you end up saying yes to things you don't want to say yes to, and no to things that you really know in your body you need to say no to. You may be holding too tight to chasing after material things, to rigid routines, certain ways of doing things that you never look outside of the box of that you could do it totally different than what you think. And you may be holding too tight to being right. I often share the story that my parents, who have been married for over 50 years, their secret to long-term marriage is when you are in a fight and you think that you are right, if you are the first person to drop it, you win. Alrighty, so we hold too tight to things and we end up maybe getting what we want, but not liking it. That keeps us in this state of doing too much and feeling like we're not doing enough. So reason number one is that you think it's normal You're in the rat race, and because we're just surrounded by a bunch of other rats doing the same thing, we think that this is normal, but actually none of us are normal. Reason number 2 is you're holding too tight to wanting something. Reason number 3 is you are stuck in a story. This is related, right? So these reasons are all related, and this one maps onto delusion in Buddhism, the 3 poisons: attachment, delusion, and aversion. And there's all sorts of delusions that we believe that drive us to do things that are not helpful. Wise effort in Buddhism has these 4 elements to it. The 4 wise efforts is what it's often described as: restraint, so preventing unwholesome states from arising; abandonment, abandoning unwholesome states if they've already arisen, so letting go of stuff that's not working for you; development, which has to do with developing the things that you want to grow in your life; and then protection or maintaining, which has to do with keeping going what's working for you. When we are stuck in a story, we do not see those steps clearly. We don't see what's not helpful for us that we need to prevent. We don't let go of things. We don't cultivate what we need to cultivate, and we don't protect the things that work for us. Like really take care of the baby seedlings of maybe your exercise program that you're just getting started, or the baby seedling of your meditation practice that you're just getting started, or the baby seedling of carving out an hour at lunch to sit outside and eat your meal. We just override all of that because we get stuck in stories about how things should be. Our human mind evolved to tell stories, to plan, to problem solve, to imagine futures, to communicate. It's beautiful. It's brilliant. Love the human mind. And it gets really problematic when we can generate future scenarios that have not happened. We can create stories about what other people think about us. We can create stories about ourselves, what we're capable of and what we're not capable of. I hear those all the time, that I am not, I can't handle this, it's too much, I always, or they are, they aren't, they always, they never, they can't. Those are all signs that you're stuck in a story. And some of the common stories that people get stuck in that lead them to take on too much, do too much, and not feel like they're doing enough are stories like, I'm not good enough, I'll be happy when, I don't have enough, I'm better than this person or I'm worse than this person, it's all up to me, I'm overly responsible. These are just so frequent that we have these stories about ourselves, and we never really pause to ask ourselves, are you sure? Is this true? Right? So we get stuck in stories that really become self-limiting. Think about the things that you are doing right now because you have a story that you have to do them, or a story that people will be disappointed in you if you don't do them. Can you make a list? Think about the things that you are doing right now because you have a fear of what would happen if you don't do them. Think about the things that you are not doing right now. Okay? The things that you are not doing right now because you have a story about you, your capabilities, your worth. Think about the things that you are not doing right now because you have a fear of what would happen. These are stories. These are associations that your mind is making. They are not real. They may or may not be true, but they are pushing your behavior around. This is the danger of believing a story. We don't do things in the here and now because of something that happened 10 years ago. We're still in the 10 years ago thing. We've just carried that story forward. We don't do things right now because we're afraid of what will happen 10 years in the future. That is just the mind creating a story. And when you believe your story, you say yes to things that you don't really want to do. You stuff or suppress your inner no. You play small. or you play big in the wrong ways. Okay, these are the dangers of believing your story. And that is what can lead us to being in the position of feeling overcommitted and underinvolved, of doing too much and feeling like we are not doing enough. Don't worry, folks. I'm going to give you some solutions in our next episode. I feel like this is so depressing. It's just that we're caught in this trap. And with wise effort, the first thing we always have to do is get curious. We have to see what trap we are caught in before we can get out. And that curiosity isn't a judgmental one or a self-berating one or, oh my gosh, here you are again one. It's, of course, no wonder this is what's happening for me. I think that this is what it means to be normal, or I'm holding too tight, which is just the human condition, or I'm stuck in a story. Okay, reason number 4 why you are doing too much but not feeling like you're doing enough is you are running from discomfort. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to be still. What shows up for you when you sit for just a few moments and you start to feel things or you start to think things? Stuff shows up. A lot of us live our lives running quickly over hot coals, and we add things because we don't want to feel things. We stay busy because we don't want to think things. And so this new form of experiential avoidance, which shows up in the form of workaholism, overscheduling things, overpacking our everything. Everything is overpacked in our lives. That pattern may be there because we don't have the capacity to be with our thoughts and feelings or just our own inner world, and the capacity to be with the human experience, which is to feel deeply. There's lots of ways that we run away. We distract ourselves, we numb ourselves, we intellectualize, we stay in our heads, we get so rigid about trying to prove our point. Sometimes it's just we run away with our bodies. We hold our breath. We tense our shoulders. We overexercise. We overeat. We undereat. We overdo everything. And this running from discomfort means that you also run from your life. You don't experience your life. You wake up in the morning and your goal is to get through the day, and you go to bed at night not having experienced your day. The costs of doing this are huge. You already are probably feeling them because I think culturally we're in a state of drive and avoidance. We have lost our capacity to be with feelings because there's a lot to feel out there, right? There's just so much suffering in the human experience and so much suffering in our world. When we block out our bad feelings, we end up blocking out the good ones too. So we miss out on the little things, the joy that's here, the good that's present because we're running so fast. We turn away from our values. It takes a lot of energy. We exhaust ourselves. So that feeling of wired and tired that many people are experiencing, they wake up in the middle of the night or they just can't go to sleep. They can't turn their mind off. It's like you turn off the fan, but it's still spinning. That is happening for many of us when we're using our drive system to control our threat system rather than actually tending to our threat systems. And then there's all these secondary problems, right? So you are now stuck in too many to-dos, right? You've triple booked your hour. You are multitasking. So you're on a Zoom meeting and answering your emails. You end up feeling like you're not living your life. And you have a lot of regrets that maybe you're also running from too. You don't even notice them, right? So the regrets of not being there for people that you love or not being there for the experiences that are important to you. I had a recent experience of this for myself where I was invited to this really beautiful opportunity to be with climate researchers up in Northern California. And I wanted it. And at the same time, I had this overscheduled month of ACT boot camp and an ACT training in Sedona that I'm leading right now. And it was squeezed in. It's like I overpacked to the gills my life. And part of what I was doing in squeezing that in was holding too tight to the belief that I had to, but also running away from the feeling of letting people down. And when I asked myself, what is it that I want versus what is it that I like what is it that I actually really yearn for here, it became really clear. So when you are running too fast and you're running away from discomfort, it ends up leading you to a life that has some regrets. And we can use those regrets to identify our values and to make values-based choices, which we'll talk about as a solution in our next episode. So I'm not going to go too far into that yet. Questions to ask yourself. If fear weren't such a problem for me, I would. If rejection and failure weren't such a problem for me, I would. If discomfort weren't such a problem for me, I would. If judgment weren't such a problem for me, I would. In order for you to direct your life in the direction that you truly yearn for, you are going to need to be willing to experience fear, rejection, failure, discomfort, judgment, the whole gamut. We can add in there sadness, anger, embarrassment, all the things. All the things. And when you are willing to open yourself to all of those feelings, then you can do that thing that you said you would, the thing that you really long to do. We'll talk more about that in the next session. Which leads us to number 5. The 5th reason why you are overscheduled, underinvolved, overcommitted is that you actually are heading in the wrong direction. You aren't making contact with what matters to you. You know what matters to you. You can feel it. I think everyone has values, right? It isn't about maybe even identifying our values. It's more about listening to and clarifying our values, how you want to show up, what's important to you in this moment, what behaviors, actions you want to take. Values aren't just about adventure. It's about being adventurous and how to live that out today, now, here, not in some story about the future. You're not living your values of being adventurous when you're planning your trip 6 months from now where you're going to be adventurous. You're living your values of being adventurous when you're being adventurous right now, right? So we head in the wrong direction and we don't ask ourselves the questions that we really need to be asking ourselves to orient ourselves. Where and with whom do you want to be more present in your life? What brings you vitality? When is life the most lifey? Right now, here, today. What matters most to you in this moment? How do you want to show up in this moment? Right now, here, today. When you make contact with that, you may start choosing different ways of living. Ways in which the tasks don't pile up, you let some stuff go. You choose to play big where it matters to you. You go all out, all in. I want to see lots of energy, lots of power, lots of productivity. I'm not anti-productivity. I just want your productivity in the right spot. In a spot that you like, not just want. And when you do that, when you play big, when you choose to put your energy in the right spots, it feels different. You don't feel like you're just skimming, skittering, running from one place to the other. You feel engaged. You feel empowered. You feel connected with the flow of life, which has got big energy to it, just like you. So you don't have to give up who you are, and you don't have to give up your drive. And if you're like me and you want to make crazy Halloween costumes because you just are like that, there's so many things that I do that are off the charts, ridiculous. And I love them because it's an expression of my values, expression of my creative genius. I want that for you. Go big. Make the crazy whatever thing that you make. Do that thing. Just don't do it because you're stuck in some story. Don't do it because you're running away from discomfort. Don't do it because you think that that's what it means to be normal. Do it because it's directed by something deep inside of you that you know matters. And when you do that, you're engaging in wise effort. Okay, so given all that, I'm off to Arizona. I'm going to go lead this ACT retreat, going to play big with all these clinicians, and it's going to be wild and fun. And we have this election coming up, another opportunity for all of us to use our voice to say what we think is important to us for our future, our country, if you're in the US. And I will be back in our next episode talking about the 5 things that you can do to stop spinning your wheels, stop overcommitting, and start living the life that you really yearn for. See you next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Wise Effort podcast. Wise Effort is about you taking your energy and putting it in the places that matter most to you. And when you do so, you'll get to savor the good of your life along the way. If you would like to become a member of the Wise Effort podcast, go to wiseeffort.com. And if you like this episode and think it would be helpful to somebody, please leave a review over at Podchaser. I would like to thank my team, my partner in all things, including the producer of this podcast, Craig, Ashley Hyatt, the podcast manager, and thank you to Ben Gold at Bell & Branch for our music. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and it's not meant to be a substitute for mental health treatments.